And I remember I asked Madonna's Kabbalah rabbi, I said, why does Madonna need Kabbalah? And he's like, imagine getting everything you always thought you wanted, and then you get it, and you still realize it doesn't fulfill you.
Welcome to the Secret Life Podcast. Tell me your secret. I'll tell you mine. When I first started my recovery 11 years ago, I struggled through the textbook-like material on this subject. I wanted to make the addiction and the recovery from it accessible and relatable to more people by telling it in an entertaining way. Well, I'm super excited to announce I've released my first book, Secret Life of a Hollywood Sex and Love Addict. If I can help just one person find a solution or at least realize they're not broken or alone, then writing this has been worth it. You can pick up the book exclusively at Amazon or signed copy at secretlifenovel.com. And the best way to support our podcast is to subscribe and share. If you haven't left a review or rating on Apple Podcasts yet, please do. It'll help more people find our show. And if you want to be a guest, shoot me a note at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to Secret Life Podcast. I'm Brianne Davis-Gantt. Today I'm pulling back the curtains of all kinds of secrets. We'll hear about what people are hiding from themselves or others. You know, those deep, dark secrets we probably want to go to our grave with, or those lighter, funnier secrets that are just plain embarrassing. Really, the how, what, when, where, and why of it all. Today, my guest is Darren. Now, Darren, I have a question for you. Dun, dun, dun. What is your secret?
My secret is that I used to be a total work addict. My entire identity was defined by my success in the workplace, usually on a daily basis.
Wow. See, I have aspects of that, so I totally identify, but when was that moment that you realized you were addicted to work?
Well, I had a mentor, let's call him a sponsor, because that's really what he is, who challenged me probably about, I would say, 5 years ago to go 1 year without working and without dating. And at the time, that seemed totally impossible to do. Because, you know, my whole identity was tied up in who I was in the workplace and in another aspect, who I was dating. And I said, if you take those two things away, then who am I? And that was his challenge. He goes, exactly. If you can find happiness, fulfillment, love for yourself without the two things that you rely on more than anything else to define who you are, that is going to be a gift that will stand you in good stead for the rest of your life. Okay,
just you saying that right now is actually terrifying me, even though no one has asked me to do that. Like the thought of not working for a year, which I actually did at my first year of withdrawal in the program, I didn't work. And it was really, really challenging. But I don't know, were you going through anything, or it was just like he decided to tell you in this moment, like, you have to put it down?
Well, here was the sort of catalyst for that. First of all, that's a totally normal reaction. I don't need to think that I was happy with it. I was like,
jumping up and down.
Yeah, I was stepping into Valhalla. This is what I want. I want to go into, I want to be in a place where I have to really validate myself. And there's nobody that really wants to do that, honestly, right up front, unless you sort of hit a wall. And basically the catalyst for that was I had a job that just ended that I didn't like, didn't want to be at, wasn't passionate about, but it was for a major studio. And here I was again in a place doing something primarily because it was a good thing to say when I was out in the world for other people. So it was all about sort of presenting an image. And he's like, well, what about you? What do you want? And I was like, well, I don't 100% know. He goes, well, that's the reason. The only way you're going to recalibrate was his philosophy is that if you take the things away that you have relied on to define yourself, then you are forced to look at your life in a way that is truly honest, vulnerable, and intimate and potentially painful. And then you begin to start to rebuild and understand what it is you truly love, what makes, your blood rush with passion in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the catalyst, because I was at the same place. I would say almost for my entire career, I did everything because of prestige, money, appearance, and the same thing with dating as well. And that was
I have
problematic.
a question for you though. Were you one of, and I found myself doing this too, where you think you want this thing, this prestigious thing, and then you get it, and then you realize it's not enough, and then you strive for more. And were you doing that? Were you noticing that? Okay.
Always. Anything like there was a project that I'd created.
Mm-hmm.
And, and my goal when I was creating it was to sell it. And here's the problem is I don't think I had any, for me anyway, there was no consciousness really around what I was doing. I was it was programming, meaning, the way I was programmed from and nobody did anything wrong, my family, my culture, my society, everything is, bigger, larger, more prestigious, more money. Those are the markers. And that was a very unconscious behavior. And I would do it. And like you, I would feel either disappointed when I got what I thought what I wanted, or it was never fulfilling. I was like, there's a problem here. So I thought I wanted it, and then I get it. And then it's not something that I want or fulfilling. So the only way to do that, for me anyway, was to stop all that and get really clear about who I really am and what it is that is truly fulfilling for me and my mission in the world for myself. I know those sounds like lofty ideas. So I had to strip all that away. And sometimes the only way to do that, thank God I was in a position where I could do that financially. Because, I know a lot of people have families and have kids and can't do that. And even if it means, for me, it also meant stripping down my life a little bit, because, there was a lot of stuff that I brought in and had.
A lot of materialization stuff that oh, right. And you just got rid of it?
Like stupid cars. I used to joke, I'll be honest about it. I used to, and again, this was part of the unconscious behavior. I turned 40 and I got myself a really nice convertible sports car, because the programming in society and me, the sucker, bought into it, was like, that's gonna fulfill you at some level. I don't think it was ever fulfilling. Even the day that I got it, I always felt like a schmuck sitting in that car. And I joked that the car in a way was keeping me single, because anybody that would see me in this car, any woman that would see me in this car would be horrified and not want to date me. The kind of woman I'd want to be with.
I keep picturing like a yellow Lamborghini, and if somebody has that car, I'm not saying anything about you, but I'm just picturing this like ridiculous color, this like vroom vroom situation.
No, it was exactly that. It wasn't far off. It was actually a really nice dark chocolate brown, but that's a whole other story. And it had a lovely leather interior. But it really wasn't my passion. So meaning like the kind of woman I'd want to be with would be horrified by that. And the kind of woman that I was attracting is not the woman I'd want to be with. So I was like, I was, your unconscious behavior is so systemic, is so built into your actions. And, precisely because it's unconscious, you don't realize what it is you're doing and why you're doing it. So his whole philosophy was, let's stop everything, so that we can reassess,
strip you down, just strip you down. Yeah.
And so basically, yes. And it was tremendously anxiety inducing. To get back to your question initially, it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but the greatest gift I've ever given myself. And I say this to friends of mine who are struggling. I was like, you can give yourself this gift. It's kind of like doing a PhD program. To get the PhD, you have to remove yourself from playtime, and you have to do the work. And so I was like, I think this is a good investment to work on myself for a year in this way by stripping these things away. And then I can kind of have the rest of my life heading in the right direction with obviously daily calibration, weekly, monthly, all that stuff. But so it was, I saw it as a great investment when I put it in those terms.
Well, here's my other question for you. And I'm just curious, in your background, you said that it was what society, how you grew up, that, this success was always like measured. You had to measure. Was your parents like that? Did they work a lot? Was it a learned behavior?
I think my parents, in many ways, were incredibly sort of healthy and led a balanced life. My father, he came from a very poor working class family. His great grandparents were immigrants, and he became a successful businessman. And so I sort of, I looked at him and I looked at the respect he got for the work that he did. And I was like, oh, I want to be like that. And, and I remember I was about to go to university and I remember I stopped for a minute. I was like, how did I end up in this place? I was going to go to university to be a lawyer. And then I remember I stopped for one moment. I was like, why am I going to be a lawyer? I don't want to be a lawyer. And I realized I had some insight that was my parents, my culture, the society, the messaging I was getting that was sort of pushing me in that direction. I was like, I want to follow a sort of a more artistic life. So, but when you think about it, just think of all the programming we get on a daily basis on TV, on commercials.
Horrible.
Constantly we're being told if we're taller, thinner, sexier, richer, more successful, then somehow
better skin, beautiful body, working out, these diet pills. I literally turned on the TV the other day, which I barely watch television anymore with a toddler. And I was watching these commercials and I was seeing it through his eyes. And I was like, I don't want my son to see this. I don't want him to think French fries are going to make him feel better, or that new Mercedes Benz. And it was like one after the other.
So, totally. And that's why today, when I see a single guy who is my age, driving, a convertible Porsche along Sunset Boulevard and, wearing the designer sunglasses and the perfect shirt and, he's got perfect, I have compassion for him. If that's what makes him happy, then who am I to in any way suggest that his life is wrong? You never know the interior map of somebody's life, but I have compassion because I was doing all the things that society, culture, advertising, TV, movies, literature had told me was the right way, but for somehow it wasn't fulfilling. And that is really confusing. Imagine, I remember I once did a story about, I was a TV news reporter and I was a journalist. And for one story, I was interviewing Madonna's Kabbalah rabbi. And I remember I asked Madonna's Kabbalah rabbi, I said, why does Madonna need Kabbalah? Sort of this mystical Jewish approach to life. And he's like, imagine getting everything you always thought you wanted, and then you get it and you still realize it doesn't fulfill you. That is the biggest tragedy of all, because most people don't reach that, these pre-programmed unconscious dreams. So I was like, wow.
And they probably they probably blame not reaching those dreams why they're unhappy. But we're talking about someone that has everything at her fingertips and she was still unhappy.
Exactly. Because because really, and I wish that kids were taught this. And I love what you said about your child, that, it's really about, it takes time to sort of realize who you are, what you like. It's through experiences. And so, in some programs, they call them top line behaviors, meaning things that really give you fulfillment. And nobody really I know it seems elemental and basic, but nobody really goes through with you. Like, what are the things that give you joy, happiness, fulfillment, make you passionate, but have no material external benefit other than your personal fulfillment? And I really had to develop that because everything was external to me. It was all about the external stuff. I mean, the basic stuff. I'll give you a basic example. I had some friends over the other night on Monday night to my house. I had the best evening. This is something, a top line behavior, something that gives me joy. I had two close friends that have never met each other before. And we had a wonderful evening. I made some pizzas and we just had some drinks outside. And we talked about our lives. We were open, we were honest, we were vulnerable, we were silly, we were playful. And that night was way more fulfilling to me than selling a project, getting a promotion, making money, dating the perfect girl, sort of the unconscious belief that I had about the perfect girl. So yeah, so it takes, it's really learning about yourself. It's really an investment in you.
Totally. And I love that. And I just wanted to say, like, I feel like with men too, with women, we all know what society puts on women, perfect appearance, all of that. But I don't think men talk about how hard society is on them.
Absolutely. I mean, believe me, I have a younger sister and I have a lot of compassion for her because she's a perfect mother. She's a perfect wife. She's the perfect employee.
But
she's
even
beautiful.
even you using the word perfect to describe her is what society puts on it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I worry about it because I have compassion because I know this yearning for quote unquote perfection is a tremendous pressure on her. And, I sometimes, when we discuss, I was like, it's, I want to take that pressure off. So, and then so I have a lot of compassion for women. And then, sort of when I date and I have an open dialogue with somebody, we talk about the pressures for men and the pressures for men. I thought my whole worth to another human being, to anybody I met, specifically a romantic partner, was, how, my job, my income, what I could provide for them financially, materially. And the truth is, it has nothing to do with that. Nothing. And so if you've made your whole life about that, and then you take that away, as you said earlier, that is a scary thing, because then you go like, well, who am I?
Who am I? Yeah. Who am I in this world? How do you think that your workaholism and your obsession with more affected your dating life in the past?
Oh my God, everything. I mean, it wasn't a one. I sort of said it was a priority, but it wasn't really a priority. So, I mean, and again,
okay, explain that to me, because probably the women want to hear that, what you just
because
said.
I thought it was about I thought I wanted to get married and have kids. I thought that in my head, it was like, oh, I want to. So I did a lot of dating. But the truth is, the dating had to sort of fit into my unconscious ideas of what a dating should be and what a partner should be. So I used to focus on the external, not the internal. So meaning that, what the woman looked like, how intelligent she was, how she would make me feel, what people would think of me when I was with this woman. And I remember I was dating somebody, and this is really vulnerable and honest to admit, I dated somebody who was, I'm going to sound like a complete asshole, but I dated somebody who was like, an Ivy League graduate who was beautiful and accomplished. And, we'd finished the date and I talked about it to a friend, and my friend says, she sounds like a nightmare. And I was like, why do you say that? He goes, well, you told me she was really rude to you. And I didn't even see that because I was so focused on, all the external stuff, how she looked, her education, her family, how she made me feel, how she would look up. I didn't even focus on, is she a nice person?
Wow.
That was not, that's how unconscious, that's how totally unconscious I was. And so so what would happen is I'd get into a relationship with these people, and after about, sort of 3 months, sort of the honeymoon period, the love drug would wear off.
That high wears off.
Yeah. And I'd be like, why am I no longer attracted to this person? Why do I no longer find them? Why do I no longer want to be with them? Because the truth is, I didn't really get to know them. I wasn't capable of getting to know them. And the truth is, I wasn't that interested in really getting to know them.
No, it seems like even when you describe them, you just put your filter over them, like what you wanted them to be. And then when that high wears off and that filter goes away, most of the time you go, I don't even like them as a person. Like, what am I doing?
Exactly. So it was totally confusing. I was like, 3 months ago, she was the perfect person, but now, so what's going on here? So that's why I had to remove everything to strip back, because the only way to sort of see these systemic, deeply embedded patterns was to remove myself from them so I could start to get some sort of consciousness around that. It was really humbling.
Well, here's my other question for you. Did you keep going on these dates, these 3-month relationships, and then did it hit you all of a sudden like, wait a minute, something must be wrong with me, not wrong with these women?
Yes. Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, listen, I don't think, I'll talk for myself. You know, I, it's not because I'm an enlightened human being. It's not because I consider I'm a good human being, but
Hmm.
it's not because I'm a great person that I took this challenge on. What happened is the old way of doing things no longer worked. So meaning that the job that I thought I wanted and it finished and was not fulfilling, the woman that I wanted that was not fulfilling ended, and there I was back, and I was 39 years old, and I'm like, I just, and the pain of going back and doing the same thing that I'd done for the last 39 years was too great not
Mm,
to put pause, and because I had to totally recalibrate. So I was like, I know what I've been doing for 39 years is not working. So I'm willing to take a risk. And the person that was my mentor, my sponsor in this area, was somebody who I really respected. So I would say to anybody that is looking to make a change and is using either a sponsor or a mentor, I would ask yourself, does this sponsor mentor have what you want? And the answer was yes. My sponsor was someone who had a successful family life, most importantly, had a successful spiritual life, was a happy, joyous human being who was of service to his community. And on top of that, he was a creative individual who was incredibly successful in his field. And he always used to say to me, Anthony, you can have everything. One, it's about knowing why you want it. And two, it's about doing it in a measured, balanced way. That's the challenge. That's the discipline.
hmm,
Have a
hmm.
spiritual life, have a material life, have a relationship. And I was only good at going two speeds, all in on dating, all in on making money, all in my career. I didn't even know what the word balance meant.
Yeah, you had no idea what balance meant. But I always like to hit, these secrets that we keep from ourselves. And you kept this secret from yourself that you are a workaholic and it was interfering with your romance and everything was tied together. So when it came to head, I always like to connect it to these 7 deadly sins. So tell me what they connect to. We got pride, greed, lust, gluttony, envy, anger, and sloth.
All.
Ah!
All. I mean, if I'm being
Ding,
totally,
ding,
all those things,
ding.
all this. I mean, I could go through, if you mention them, and I'll tell you how each one related to that. Pride. Yeah,
Pride.
pride was like, yeah, how do I took a job on a project I didn't want, wasn't interested in. This was, before I made this big change, because it was, as I said earlier, with a big studio. And I knew if I was at a dinner party, this is how immature or unconscious I was, or so detached from my own sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I cared about. So it was my pride, how I could present to others. And the same thing with dating as well. It
Mm-hmm.
really wasn't, who the human being was inside. It was like,
All
how did this
outside.
person? Yeah. So that was pride and all that. What was the next one?
Well, greed. I mean,
Greed. Yeah. Well, because greed comes from a place of, if you think your only self-worth was how much money you make, then there's never enough money you can make. If that's your self-worth, then obviously the more money you have, the better you're going to feel about yourself. So yeah, it was total greed. So it's such a blessing now to not take jobs because I'm focused on the bottom line. I was like, is this fulfilling to me? Is this somebody I want to work with? Is this a project I'm passionate about? Is it sending out something, an important message I believe in into the world? In the past, none of those things came into
none of them.
place.
And the same thing. Now, when I choose a job, I'm like, do I really want to play this? Do I really want to spend my time away from my family for this? All
Mm-hmm.
those important questions. Is it going to take me away from my spiritual journey? All those questions I ask myself because I have been on set and sitting there and going, I don't want to be here. I don't even want to play this. And that was such
Yeah,
a reality check for me.
it's such a sacrifice because, I have a friend who's got a big series on one of the streaming networks. And, long story short, he's not passionate about the project. And to remove yourself from your life, to go off on location as you do for three,
Mm-hmm.
4 months when you're not really passionate about the project and you're just looking at the the bottom line, meaning how much you're getting paid per episode, it's like ultimately there's no amount of money for me.
There's
anyway.
no amount of money.
There's no amount away from your family.
And you think they're like, oh, this amount of money. And you're like, yeah, I'm good there. I'll take that. But once you do it and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't fulfilling. Even though the paycheck is coming, it still doesn't, it really is so empty. And a part of me, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to probably kick myself later, but a part of me is jealous that felt easier before, being kind of blind to your secret, and that you could live in this like fantasy of what makes you happy. But once you open that door and really look at it, and like it's right in your face, you can't get around it anymore.
Well, here's the thing that people should know is like, once you have sort of lifted the veil, the proverbial veil, there's, on your life and what you're doing, there's really no going back. And I was saying this to somebody the other day. It's the same with dating or career. It's like, once you've done this kind of work, it's like the road becomes very narrow, meaning the kind of people you want to date, the kind of work you want to do, you're incredibly selective. And yes, there are days I wish I could just put the blinders on and just do it and deal with the consequences. They can't be that bad. I've forgotten how bad the consequences are when you're working, as you know, all the hours, you're up in the middle of the night, all the hours that God sends to fulfill this project, but it's not putting something good into the world, or it's not fulfilling. That's why it can't be done for the money. And I know I have to, other people have to pay the bills. So there's a nuance there, but still, if that's the only reason you're doing it, some people can take jobs because it's important for their family. I have a friend who is, he's a spiritual guy, and he takes jobs because it supports and fulfills, his family, his desire to have a family, and supports his family and their dreams. And so, okay, that's a
great reason to do it.
And
yeah, but you can't take a job for your ego to fill you internally. Well, that's the problem. But if you take a job, if you take a job because you provide for a family and you keep it at that, and that's all it is, that is totally doable. It's when you're trying to do it for your ego and fulfilling how amazing you are, right?
Well, here's the trick. I mean, the truth is, like, if you're trying to do it for the ego can never be satisfied. There's no amount of money, there's no amount of women, there's no amount of prestige that can satisfy the ego. So it's kind of like it's a fool's errand to think that if you're doing it for that reason, it's never going to work. So that's why, and I keep going back to, what is it that's important to me? Who am I? Who do I want to be in the world? What are the things I find joyous? Like, for example, right now, you and I were talking before, but, right now I'm directing a music video with a friend of mine. He's just written a song. And can I tell you something? It is so fulfilling. For years, I've done it in the past. For years, I wanted to do this, but it's so fulfilling. And it's not about the money. It's not about it's nothing to do with that. It's because I believe in the message of this song. And I believe I want to work with this person because I care about them and I want to help them get their art into the world. And that is so fulfilling. It's like it's like the money.
Doing this for me is not like, this is for fun and for free. Like,
of course,
this has been more fulfilling than any series I've been on any movie I've been a star in, anything. Like, just a one-on-one conversation between two people about some real shit. And that is why I'm doing it.
Yeah. And thank you. And of course I want to do this. Like, the trick is, it's a hard pill to swallow in a way, but, the greatest joy that I've ever experienced is being of total service to other people, right? To like helping, I don't feel like I'm doing anything here. I'm just talking, and I guess I like to talk, so it's my pleasure to do that. But
you're
it's like
enjoying
it. Being of total service to some, that's where the joy is. But the caveat there is, before you're of service to others, and it's why, this mentor sponsor had me take a year off, is you've got to be of service to yourself. You've got to have your house in order, take care of yourself, do self-care so that you feel fulfilled and you can show up for others. So that really is the joy in life, is being of service to others. So now, can I make money so that on other things, so that I can show up in artistic ways and of service to others? So now and the truth is, I realized I couldn't work for corporations anymore unless it was on sort of my terms, because, corporations are all about the bottom line. There's no accounting really for, the human being. And that just didn't work with who I am. I feel like I'm going to go off on a tangent, but sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. And my other question, I want to hit this question before you go, but what do you think the benefit of keeping this secret from yourself, and who do you think it harmed?
Well, the benefit was that, the reason I didn't look at it earlier is, one, I didn't know. And
Yeah.
two is, once you then reveal this to yourself and you're willing to be honest about this secret, then you've got to deal with the not knowing part of it. And as you said, that anxiety of taking all that away, because in a way it was, the dating women that were not right or taking jobs that are not right to give myself validation was a way of minimizing the way I felt about myself. So really, once you strip that away, you then have to deal with these feelings, this lack of self-esteem. And so it was a benefit because it made me feel esteemed for a moment. The day I got the job, the first date, the second date, the first 3 months of the relationship, the day I got the paycheck made me feel good. But ultimately, it was barren. And then once you take that pain underneath that of the low self-esteem that one has to really dig into and then learn the tools, and all the stuff is doable to give your self-esteem. Like, there was a friend of mine recently and she just lost a job, and I had such compassion for her because, her whole self-esteem was tied to her work. Yeah. And I was like, I go, you're not your job, right? You're an amazing human. If you never work again, you are an incredible human being from top to bottom.
And I think people really need to hear that right now, because so many people are losing their jobs and, we can't work. And I think it's important that people hear that you are not your job and you are not who you're with.
And I think people know that intellectually. There's people who are like, yeah, I hear that. And this was where I was at. I was in the same place as this woman. She got it intellectually, but she still felt it, meaning I don't have a job, therefore I'm worthless. I can't go to a, dinner party, go out with friends. She knows it intellectually. That's why that year was to be able to sort of understand.
Give yourself that break. It's almost allowed yourself to be I'm giving myself permission to take a year off. So,
well, it's not just that, but it's also experientially, meaning if I can experience fulfillment, joy, passion, happiness without any of those things, then I truly understand, not just on an intellectual level, that I'm not my job, I'm not my woman, because I've experienced what it's like to find happiness, joy without any of those things. And once you've experienced that, then there's another way of living.
Well, here's my last question for you. And this is the $1 million question. If someone out there is going through the same thing you described you went through 5 years ago, what would be your advice to them?
Well, my advice to them is, first of all, don't give up hope. This is a good thing, even though it feels like this is the worst thing that can ever happen.
Like you're in hell.
Yes, you've lost a job you hate, or a relationship you thought you wanted that wasn't fulfilling has ended. It wasn't your choice and you don't want it back, but you sort of want it back. So you think it's the worst thing that's ever going to happen to you. There's an old saying, when you're down, God's up to something. And so really this is a great opportunity to be able to sort of clean the slate and to find joy, happiness in the rest of your life. If you take a little bit of time, it's kind of like going back to school to get a new skill set. And so programs, 12-step programs like DA really help people sort of recalibrate their passion in the workplace. And there's a set of tools that'll help you. DA stands for Debtors Anonymous. And then any sort of 12-step program, because it's not just learning how to do this stuff. It's also something, it's your sanity around taking the wrong job, dating the wrong women is defined on a daily basis. So any sort of system, meaning I have to work the tools of the program on a daily basis, because my default setting still in my system is work, date, not stop and analyze. And so I sometimes still now have to pray to give myself some time off. I was like, am I allowed to take a weekend off? And then so I have to sort of get some conscious, like, yeah, Anthony, you have enough money. You're really taken care of. You worked hard this week. It's okay to do that. So I still, on a daily basis, I have to sort of remind myself, and I have to have people that support me on this journey. So it's not just learning it and then getting on with your life. It's really sort of
it's a daily reprieve. Like you just,
yes.
You have to keep telling yourself.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your secret and being so vulnerable and open with us.
Oh my God, it was my pleasure. And, I feel so grateful that you're in my life. And, I so support what you're doing here. I think it's going to help a tremendous amount of people. And I've seen the tremendous change in you. And I respect you as a sister, as a fellow human being. And so I'm really honored that you would think that I have anything to share that could help others. So if it did, then, thank you.
Well, thank you. If you want to be on the show, please email me at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. Until next time. Thanks again for listening to the show. Please subscribe, rate, share, or send me a note at secretlifepodcast.com. And if you like to check out my book, head over to secretlifenovel.com or Amazon to pick up a copy for yourself or someone you love. Thanks again. See you soon.